Hi, I'm Teresa and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. This month I read 12 books, which is pretty good for me, but not quite as impressive as last month. And I actually started off this month so strong. I was reading a book a day, and then I hit a slump and I could barely bring myself to read for no reason. So this took a downturn, but I'll be talking about all the books I read. A few of these are ARCs, these are advanced copies that I've received for a free review, and it's through NetGalley, so it's not like amazing and impressive, but I'll be talking about them. So the first book I read was A Family Affair by Rob Lovelace. This was an ARC, and I requested this late at night on a whim when I went on a NetGalley requesting spree, and then by the time I'd woken up the next morning I'd been approved. And I kind of had regrets about this one. I wanted to unrequest it because I wasn't actually that interested in it, but here we are. I read it anyway. I actually read it and reviewed it and had my review and everything up within 24 hours of requesting it, so I was quite impressed. But this book was not for me. It is an is it a romance? It's kind of a romance. So your main character's gay, so you've got that aspect, and I kind of went into it expecting this family drama because he's got your main character's gone home for Christmas and his sister has shown up with her new boyfriend, and that's your main character's ex-boyfriend, and there's drama, and I was like, just be a fun time. And it actually got deeper than I was expecting, and I really appreciated that. But overall, I just didn't like the book. The writing style was not good. It was very technical and over explained almost. Like telling you about every single action in explicit detail. It's like, I do not care how he drove home. Um, and then I just also didn't care about the characters, so that's why that book actually got 2 stars from me. I just wasn't all that impressed. And then next up was Camp by Elsie Rosen. I read an advanced copy of this and then bought the book after it came out. This is one of my new favourites. It is so beyond queer positive. It's such a delight to read. It was complete 5 stars, so addicting, so fun, but also it tackles really serious issues, but like with humour, so it's a fun book, but you're also being slowly educated. And it just had so many important aspects, so much diversity. There's not a single cishet main character or even really side character. This is set in a camp for LGBTQ teens, and you've got your main character Randy, who's been going to the camp for ages. He's your kind of, your stereotypical gay guy who's, flamboyant, musical theatre, all that stuff. He's that, but his crush at the camp is very masculine, straight passing, that kind of guy. So in order to appeal to this guy, he completely reinvents himself. And honestly, that didn't appeal to me too much, but it was done very well, even if I did cringe a bit to start with. Randy did this, but all of his friends were kind of like, no, that's wrong, but let him do it and let him make his own mistakes, and I appreciated that as well. So don't let that put you off. Like, it's very much acknowledged that it's weird and that he shouldn't have to do that to appeal to a guy. But overall, this book, so impressive. It tackled toxic masculinity, it tackled sex positivity, queer history so much. And it's just a fun book. The next book I read was Running with Lines by Julian Winters. This is another book, another very queer positive book. Your main character is bisexual and he is part of a soccer team, and they go to another summer camp, this time for training. The whole team is so positive and welcoming, and it's got found family vibes, and I really love that. And you've also got your love interest character, So, childhood best friends to strangers to nae really fans of each other to lovers. That's the trope you've got going here. And it's really, really fun. And it also talks about some important issues. There's some body issues which you don't really see with boys. In writing, of course, obviously it happens. And that was really good to see. Um, and yeah, it was a fun book. Like, I don't understand the sports part, but I like the found family part and everyone just being pals and teammates. um, yeah, that's all I can really say about that. But it was another 5-star read. I really, really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend it. I'll be picking up more of Julian Winter's books very soon, hopefully. The next book is yet another arc that I bought a physical copy of, and that is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. This is, it's also gay. Who'd have thought? And you've got Cal, who is this kind of amateur journalist, and that's actually a really interesting aspect. But his dad is picked for the NASA space program for going to Mars, and so he moves down to the NASA facility because they've got all of the families staying there, and they've got the kind of reality TV show set up where they're getting all in on the drama. It's just very, very positive and hopeful, and I really, really enjoyed reading this. The writing style is so, so easy to read. I absolutely flew through it. And yes, it's another one I definitely, definitely recommend. The next book is Where I Hit My Reading Slump, and I'm so annoyed that I didn't really like this book, and that is Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I have only read Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, but I really wanted to try out some of her novels. I've got her upcoming release Loveless pre-ordered, but I just wasn't a fan of this one, but I'll definitely be trying others. Um, I just, I don't know, I was a bit bored. I wasn't a fan of the narrator. Felt like nothing was really happening right till the end. I just didn't care, if I'm completely honest. And I think that might just be a me thing. It could have also just been just me getting burned out into a slump. Who knows? But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of this one. I think I gave it 3 stars. The next book was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This one I was still in a slump for and I wasn't really enjoying that much. And it also got 3 stars, I think. But it was such a cool concept, and I love the magic system. I actually really liked a lot of the characters, and I just really wanted to like it, but I don't know, it didn't happen. I feel like I've stopped liking fantasy as much, and I don't know, I've kind of almost forgotten how to read it. Like, I could not focus on this book for more than 2 seconds. It was ridiculous, but I powered through it, and I think a lot of the reviews said the ending was really rushed and they weren't a fan, but the ending was the only bit I could focus on, so like that worked for me. And I don't know, I loved the concept. I loved the very casual queer inclusion that the love interest Nathaniel was by these books, and this author is very well loved, and I wanted to love it too. Maybe it was just my mood, and I will one day love it. Who knows? The next book was also a disappointing read, and that is Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens by Tanya Boteju. I wanted to love this, but I did not, and it was more than my kind of mediocre, didn't love it, didn't hate it of the past two. I just did not like this one. If I hadn't been listening to it in audio, I wouldn't have been able to finish it. I just didn't like it, didn't like the main character. I find her incredibly annoying, and this story had a whole lot of threads of things going on, and it just didn't tie in together very nicely. Or, I don't know, some things were left quite unresolved, and some of the side characters were actually a lot more interesting than your main character, and just a lot of things that contributed to just make me not a big fan. And This is disappointing. It might be the first sapphic book I've not liked because your main character is she never uses the label lesbian, but she only likes girls, and it's one of my pet peeves when labels aren't used. And like you're very welcome to not use labels, that's not what I'm saying, but books do not like using the lesbian label, and I hate that because it just reinforces some very negative things about it. And I might talk about that later. I have some thoughts, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's what this book was doing, or if it's more just that you don't have to define your identity, which is also a very valid message. It was just a bit of a mess, really, is the best way I can describe the book. Sorry. It did explore drag, and the way those scenes were described were incredible. I just didn't like all the other stuff, basically. Next up, I read The Edge of the Abyss by Emily Skrutsky. This is the sequel to The Abyss Surrounds Us, which I read last year. And this is a fun duology. It's sapphic, you've got a lesbian main character, there's pirates, it's futuristic, you've got sea monsters. It's just a fun time, really. And I really like this sequel. I think it was what I needed. It's so fast paced. You know, there's never a pause in the action. It just goes and goes and goes, and it's quite short. And it's just very easy to focus on in the way that my previous reads hadn't really been. And I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good conclusion. And yeah, I just loved seeing Bao. Bao is the highlight of those books. He's a massive, terrifying sea monster, but he's also a baby, so I love him. Next up was another arc that I then bought a physical copy of, and that is Hideous Beauty by William Hussey. This is gorgeous. It's this kind of mystery thriller. It's got romance at the centre. You've got a gay main character, so gay romance. And I cannot recommend it enough. So, okay, I promise I'm going to talk about character death. It's not a spoiler, it's in the blurb, I promise. But this book starts with Dylan and Elle, who've been dating kind of in secret for a while because Dylan's still in the closet. They are outed, they come out, and it all goes quite well. And then later, as they're driving home, something happens, and Elle actually dies, and it's so 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 sad. Like going into a book knowing a character dies and still crying at it, that's impressive, and that's what happened here. And so you've got Dylan later on trying to solve the mystery of how Alice died and why he'd been in a bit of a weird mood, some things had happened before. And you've also got flashbacks to when they were in a relationship as well beforehand, and they're just so 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 sweet and really build up the book and their relationship and make you care so much more. And I just thought it was very very well done. It also has some important themes and things that they discuss that I really appreciated. One thing would be the talking about acceptance and the kind of superficial value it often has. This book explores how that's not really enough. I don't know how much I can say without it being spoilery, but it's a very authentic way of talking about coming out and acceptance, and it's something that I definitely relate to as well. And I just think it's very important, and I really do recommend it. It's a gorgeous book. It made me cry several times. I don't do that. That's how good the book is. Next up, we've got another book that I think made me cry as well, and that is Music from Another World by Robin Talley. Clearly, I was in my feelings and picking gay books that were going to make me cry. This is another arc that I then bought a physical copy of, and this is set in 1977 in California, and it's told through letters and diary entries of two girls, and they are set up as pen pals. And there was some big progress in the gay rights movement at this time. You've got Harvey Milk, who was elected the first openly gay official of California, and things about his campaign, and it's very interesting. It talks about a very important time but also very difficult time for gay people, and definitely there is very overt homophobia in it. Both girls come from very Christian families, um, and some of them are very vocal in their hatred of gay people, and that is scary to read about. It's upsetting to read about. But this book never becomes this very dark thing, this very sad thing. It is so hopeful, and I cannot recommend it enough. Um, this book also says lesbian out loud and proud, and I know that there's it's obviously a different time period and there's different terminology, but it's still seeing that, and it just makes me happy, okay? The final book I read this month was Jack of Hearts and Other Parts by Elsie Rosin. This is the same author as Camp. I decided to pick up his other YA book, and this was also very good. And like Camp, it was fun, it was light-hearted, but it also had some important messages in it. It's very sex positive, and this is something that's so desperately needed in YA, especially when it comes to queer stories. You've got your main character Jack, and he starts writing for his friend this kind of sex advice or relationship advice column. But then he starts getting little notes from a stalker, and they're very scary, obviously, and they're not a fan of how overt he is. They want him not back in the closet, but acting like a good gay, like not not being with multiple guys, not being so overt and loud and proud. And it's not a good situation, but it's a fun book, and I really also enjoy it and also recommend it. So that was my May wrap up. It was very gay, I have to say, and I just really enjoyed so many of the books. Also had some disappointments. This might be my most mixed results reading month in a while. So thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this. What did you read this month? Have you read any of these? Any favourites? And yes, thanks for watching. See you with another video soon.